The most amazing people in life are the ones who inspire others. Hi, I'm Bert Baron, and welcome to Be Inspired.
And I'm Lisa Anderson. Glad you could join us.
Absolutely. And this, of course, is the series where we bring you real stories from folks like you and I and sharing stories of inspiration. Lisa, our special guest who is with us here today, takes a horrific moment in his life and a real tragedy, if you will, but he's using this now to help out other people that are in similar situations and helping others. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, Stephen Willis, so honored you could be with us here today to talk about your amazing nonprofit organization, Hope Sheds Light. You and Ron Rosetto, your co-founders, and Arvo Prima have done an incredible job of assisting families and their loved ones and those who are addicted. It's such a prevalent problem we have in Monmouth and Ocean counties and beyond, everywhere really, that is addiction to opioids and heroin. So we are so glad you could join us today and talk about what you're doing, what you've done, and what you're going to do. Stephen Willis, co-founder of Hope Sheds Light.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Bert. I'm very grateful to be here. Hope Sheds Light is a family-focused nonprofit agency. What we do is to provide education, support, resources, and hope to everyone and anyone that's impacted by addiction and this opioid epidemic. My journey with addiction began 25 years ago, and I think it's important to talk about that. It helps to understand why hope exists. There are three founders, Ron Rosetto and Arvo Prima. Hope Sheds Light was Ron's original idea. He lost his son, Mark, about 6 months before he gave me a call. And then he also called Arvo. And he asked if we could create a nonprofit. And what he wanted to do, which really impressed me so much, is to serve the community instead of just languishing in despair. And I appreciated the phone call because of my journey through addiction. My particular journey started again 25 years ago with my son, also named Mark. The first 12 years of our life together was wonderful. There was school and sports and church, and Denise, I was actually a single dad early on in the first few years of Mark's life, and then we were both blessed to meet Denise, and Denise married us both and adopted Mark. And so the first 12 years was great. But at age 13, it's like a switch was thrown and all hell broke loose in my house. He started bringing in a lot of different kinds of drugs in the house, between marijuana, hallucinogens, and pills. And I objected to that, of course, as a dad. But what was so concerning beside the physical evidence of drugs is that his attitude and behavior changed. He went from a boy involved in a lot of good activities to a young man who made it very clear to his mom and I that he didn't intend to do anything that we wanted him to do all of a sudden. And I didn't know what I was looking at first. I thought it was mere defiance. I thought my dad stuff, my grounding, my whatever could work. Yeah. And it was so frightening is that none of it worked. What worked then didn't work when he was 13. And I couldn't actually make him go to treatment either. And there were people that I guess thought I was a bad parent, perhaps, but I really wasn't. And everything that I tried as a dad didn't work. It was truly the most humbling thing I've ever been through, because I'm a man and professionally as an attorney, so I think I can fix things, right? And when I couldn't fix him, the whole household suffered terribly. And what I ended up doing with Mark, because I loved him so dearly, is that I ended up actually pressing charges against him. And it was a very unpopular thing to do all those years ago, but I needed help, right?
You were desperate.
I was desperate, and my rationale was that if I couldn't affect change in my home with my son, I needed to find somebody or something that could. Though by pressing charges, I reasoned that if I could tell the court what I was looking at and why I thought my son was using drugs, I could get help through a probationary sentence, get court-ordered type of treatment. Well, my son, as you can imagine, objected to that vehemently, and it was chaos in my house for a while. But by holding him accountable, I think I taught him that I love him very much. I taught him that responsibility is important and consequences for actions are important. But through the legal system, I was able to develop kind of a different way of practicing criminal law. The judge did understand all those years ago that Mark was a sick young man,
Yeah.
and he needed help. And she ordered him to get the kind of help he needed, and there was a consequence, namely juvenile detention, if he didn't do it well. Well, that ended up getting his attention, and he started getting some help, which was good. So I figured this is the way I'm going to practice law, to serve people that way. The issue with my son is that when there was no legal system in place in his young 20s, he was using again because there was no consequence if he didn't. And it broke my heart, really, because I knew a great deal about addiction.
Yeah.
The chronic, progressive, and fatal aspects of it if left untreated. The spiritual part of it, which needs to be addressed too. So my son in his early 20s overdosed 4 times that I know of. And I say it that way because I went to community hospital in Toms River to visit him. And there was another woman carrying yet another child crying by his bedside. And I prayed all the time that he would have enough experiences so that he wanted to change, because that's truly what anyone afflicted with this disease, they need to get to that point. They need to want to change.
Rock bottom, yeah.
And once they want to change, there are plenty of resources out there. I know there are. But even those 4 overdoses, he survived those things, and even that didn't seem to be enough for him to actually get into treatment or want to get into treatment or want to get involved in a fellowship meeting where he could get support. He kept saying, I got this, Dad. I can do this myself. About 8 years ago or so, he was living up in Newark with 4 of his children, and he actually hung himself. And there was cocaine, there was alcohol, a great deal of alcohol, a lot of substances on board. And my wife and I went up to UMD&J on a Saturday morning, and we were told by the doctors that he probably wouldn't survive the day, and if he did, he'd be severely diminished, because he presented as if he was out of oxygen for 10 minutes, and that, of course, made me cry. So I prayed, though. I just said, Lord, he's already diminished, so please make him whole or take him home. And 48 hours later, the doctors took the machine off of him, and that rascal woke up, like unscathed, woke up. And the doctors walked out of the room. And I looked at my son and I said, Mark, you are apparently hard to kill. 4 overdoses and the hanging. What will it take for you to decide enough is enough? And that did get his attention, actually. He told me of an experience that he had, I guess this near-death experience. He didn't read many books, but he was relaying the fact that he thought he was drowning. I said, really? He said, Dad, I was in the bottom of the ocean and I saw Grandma, who was my mom, and they were very close. She helped me raise him before we met Denise, but she died a few years before that. And he told his grandma that he wanted to stay with her. I asked how he looked, and he said she looked young and beautiful. And I said, but she told him apparently that he couldn't stay, so he came back to me. And I said, well, what will you do with that experience now, Mark? Is this enough for you to just accept some help? Well, he went down to Texas. He went down to Texas to be with his birth mother, who he got to know and who was in recovery herself. But even when he was there, he wouldn't go to meetings or wouldn't accept some help. And he was fishing early one morning on a beautiful riverbank in McKinney, Texas, about 5.5 years ago, when he had a massive seizure. And he rolled into the water and he drowned. And that's how I lost him. And I shared that because there's all different ways that people do die from this disease. There's collateral damage that's done. He developed a seizure disorder and wasn't even taking the seizure medicine regularly. But so my son was actually alive when we started Hope Sheds Light. Ron's son, Mark, died first, and then he called me. And my Mark was still alive down in Texas. And when Ron called and said, would you help me? I said, what's your idea for a nonprofit? He said, I want to provide the resources that people need in order to get help. Because Ron and Arvo and I all those years ago, we didn't really know where to turn. We didn't know who to call. We didn't know how to deal with insurance companies and what programs might be available. So with a lot of help from very talented people, we created a website through Hope Sheds Light that lists inpatients and outpatients and support groups and grief counselors and individual therapists so that people can access that. But I said, guys, what we also need to do is to talk about what this disease truly is. And that's what our website does too. And the codependency, the family component of this, because we all three of us got sick. Arvo lost his son Pablo just 2 years ago, actually. So we're three fathers who have lost our kids. But what we've been able to do is to create this website that educates. And we also agreed that we'd create a helpline, which I'm very, very proud of. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helpline that is now answered by certified recovery coaches, people who have lived experience, who are in recovery themselves. Because I wanted to make sure that we make contact with people right when they need it. Not necessarily go to our resource guide and leave a message for a facility, but be able to make contact with people who know what this disease is and what impact it has. And through the helpline, we're able to help individuals and family members find the help that they need, and to educate them about addiction and to make that connection.
That is so important to have that available around the clock when someone is in a real crisis and they need help
Immediate.
now.
That's right.
To be able to call and reach out to someone and know that the help is there, that saves lives in its own, Stephen. It really does.
Appreciate that.
That moment is make or break for a lot of people and a lot of families, and no family should ever have to endure what you went through.
Someday I wish I upon a star, even where the clouds are far behind.
Be Inspired. First, we want to recognize Photo Center in Brick, family owned and operated since 1977. Photo Center carries a full line of digital cameras, camera accessories, and hosts photo classes and workshops. For more info on Photo Center in Brick, it's available by going to photocenter.com.
Also, thanks to Chain Gang Pro Performance Clothing, a new local company focused on providing activewear for your active moments. Check out their story and line of products at chaingangpro.com or follow their journey on Instagram or Facebook by searching Chain Gang Pro.
Be Inspired would also like to thank our sponsor, Mike O'Bertlick from Keller Williams in Shrewsbury. Mike O'Bertlick services Monmouth and Ocean County, so if you plan on moving to Monmouth County, you got to go to Mo. You can list or sell your home by calling Mike O'Bertlick at 908-216-0551. Hashtag gotta go to Mo, a realtor you grow to love. We're back with Stephen Willis, one of the founders of Hope Sheds Light. He's here with us on Be Inspired, sharing his story. The ultimate loss, the most heartbreaking loss that any parent or any family should have to endure. I just get a sense of helplessness, that you were just drowning in helplessness for a period, that everything you tried to do just wasn't helping your son at all. Is helpless the right word to describe it?
Well, it was. But actually, that didn't last very long for me, because I'm not good at being helpless. And I got so sick trying to fix my son. And I explained it to people. I got sick in the way, not necessarily physically sick, but truly emotionally and spiritually sick, in that I forgot to talk to my wife. I forgot to be a father to my blessed daughter Emily, who's 10 years younger. I forgot to serve the people who I do as an attorney. That's how focused we get when a loved one is really sick with this disease. So
Yeah, the whole family suffers.
I needed help. And that's been one of the many blessings God's given me. The understanding that I needed help. And what I did, being me, is that I thought I could figure it all out myself, my own recovery. And that's not possible. Nobody truly can recover by themselves. But I needed to get sick enough so that I knew I needed help. And that helpless feeling started to go away when I went to the self-help meetings that are out there, the fellowship meetings.
And that takes a lot of courage, too.
I appreciate that. I think it does.
It does. It takes a lot of courage. You have to check your ego at the door.
Right.
And you have to just say, I need some help.
And that's what's
huge.
difficult, though, for so many people,
is.
whether individuals or family members, parents, kids, because we still think we can think through this disease, this recovery piece, and we really can't. What does happen, though, and it's absolutely a miracle, is that when we can get humbled enough to say, I don't know what I'm doing here, and listen to other people who have the lived experience, who are in recovery and actively and celebrating that. If we copy that, we can have that.
It's true.
And that's what I ended up doing. It became important for me and for Ron and for Arvo to understand that we needed to get healthy, whether or not our sons decided to get healthy. We needed to celebrate life and honor the people who are with us, waiting for our sons. And they all died, the three of them, because they didn't want to ask for help. They wanted to try to recover by themselves. So with the experience, what we've done through Hope beside the helpline is that we have family support meetings. We have them weekly. Finding Hope meetings we have for people to know that they're not alone. We have an educational piece the first 45, 50 minutes, and then we break out into groups and talk about what we've heard and how to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
The following week, we talk about, you introduce topics, good recovery practices that family members can learn and develop so that the whole family is lifted up.
I think there's a lot of fear, too, Bert. I know from friends of mine who, unfortunately, and we all know how prevalent the opioid epidemic and heroin epidemic is in our area, and you read so many young lives are lost. But when a family is first faced, I believe there's two things that happen. I believe it's denial at first, like, no way could this be happening. And your son was quite young. And the second thing is fear. And sometimes that fear just paralyzes you and you don't know what to do. Thankfully, there are organizations such as Hope Sheds Light, and you haven't even touched on everything you do. I had a family member myself I was concerned about, and he's a young man, and he has been addicted to opioids for years. And I thought, I have to call Stephen. Within 5 minutes, he called me back, got a place for this young man to go, and unfortunately, he has relapsed. It's a distant cousin, but, like you said, Bert, before, the immediate help is right there, and you make it so accessible for parents and families to reach out by certified recovery coaches.
It's a question of love, really.
Yeah, and I try to tell people, if only addiction came with blood or a bruise, because then you would realize that it's someone who needs help.
Yeah.
And
That's well
sometimes
said.
when there's not those visual things, that when you can't really perceive that someone has addiction or depression, if only we just viewed it like that, it'd be so much different. I'm sure that's the approach of your organization, right? These are sick people who need help, and we're here to help them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think it takes tremendous strength for three fathers who all lost their sons. It's like something that you think is made up. To use such a tragedy to move forward and help so many others. And what better, I think that's why so many people gravitate towards Hope Sheds Light, is because you're real, you've been through it, you've dealt with it. I know you do a lot of fundraising. You have your walks, which are so inspirational.
Thank you. Our next walk will be on September 7th, and
All right.
thousands of people come.
Yeah.
Hope really is it's a celebration of recovery. It is our way, Ron and Arvo's, my way, to elevate and celebrate the lives of our sons through the service of other people. It's a great way to live. It really is.
It also gives purpose, I think, to such a tragedy. The three of you, it's almost as if it's honoring their life. And you really, truly are. You
Thank
said
you.
to me when you walked in today, I'm celebrating my son's life. And that is a beautiful way to look at it.
Thank you.
Stephen, some words of inspiration, if you would, for anyone listening or watching today, a parent maybe going through the same situation that you did.
Oh, I invite everyone to please call our helpline. It's 855-850-HOPE. It's available to really anyone. And if they simply have questions about addiction, we'll be happy to answer. If they need help to move a loved one into treatment, if they need help themselves as family members, that's why we exist. And we're able to connect them immediately with a recovery coach or a family coach. It's important that everybody know that they should not try to deal with this alone.
Right.
That there's a great deal of experience, a great deal of compassion there, and that's really what Hope Sheds Light is.
Well, Stephen Willis, thank you for joining us this time around on Be Inspired, and thank you for sharing your story, and it was a real honor to have you with us here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephen.
Hosted by Lisa Anderson and Bert Baron. Director of Production, Rod Weber. Executive Producers, Rod Weber and Sean M. Sternberg. Creator and Executive Producer, Michael R. Doyle. Also thanks to Chain Gang Pro Performance Clothing, Michael Obertlich from Keller Williams, and the Photo Center in Brick.